Welcome back to Fundraising Demystified. Today, we're going back in time a little bit with a very close friend of mine, that pretty much introduced the word entrepreneur to me back when I was 18 in college. Jon Tucker, founder of HelpFlow, bootstrapper since day one. Jon, great to have you on the show to finally bring our conversation into the public limelight.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me, man. It makes me feel old. We met when we were 18. We're not 18 anymore, so time goes by fast.
You and I have been riffing offline about integrating AI into our companies, how we're using it, how you're using it. Jon, just to kick things off, when you think about all the AI tools that you're doing, how does that change your staffing requirements and headcount requirements?
I think I would almost answer in like two ways. Like one of the things we've noticed with customer service over the years is very systematic. And so I started to realize a couple years into the business is like technology is going to replace this. And it happened like very fast over the past couple years. But like in terms of our clients and what we do for clients and like how many customer service agents do you need, it's significantly less now because AI can handle a lot of the tier one questions, right? And so just in like our core business, it makes it so you need probably half the customer service agents that you used to. And I think that'll accelerate really quickly. Internally, as a team, I look at it as basically an efficiency game where basically a team member on our team in sales, for example, can handle 2 to 3x the deal flow that another competing agency might be able to handle because we're using AI for a ton of the steps and all the meeting preparations and all the, email outreach and all that stuff. We're layering AI into all of it. So I think of it not so much as being able to downsize our team, but more so being able to increase the efficiency of the team. And I look at that as a competitive thing where it's like, okay, I know some of our competitors very well. They're using ChatGPT maybe, right? And like, that's very far off from where we're at. I look at it as almost like a knife to a gunfight type of situation. I think we're in an interesting spot in AI right now where you can just run circles around people if you know not even the advanced stuff, but just like, more than the basics and you use it every single day, you can accomplish a ton with it. So I look at it as like a booster essentially of people.
Well, what comes to mind is also just competitive pricing, when you could probably lower your price while keeping the same staff and keeping the same profitability to be able to compete with maybe, full AI automation solutions, but still have the human oversight that still, frankly, a lot of people want. When you are looking at companies and talking to various different startups or, potential customers of yours, how do you look at these companies that you're talking to and advising them on AI integration or bringing AI into their business?
I think everybody wants to bring AI into their business. And then when you get into like planning, like, what does that mean? Like, no, like many people are not clear. I don't want to say nobody, but everyone's excited. Few are clear on how to implement it. I think for businesses that are wanting to not disappear over the next couple of years, I think you have to understand how your business operates, which most businesses do. I don't know if they could articulate it, but they need to know how it operates, right? So take the time to like get clear, but make sure you're paying attention to like what AI tools are out there and like, use ChatGPT 01, right? Because that's like the best model now. I guess you could also say 03 is better at certain things, but like use the most recent stuff, spend time researching how things are going, and push through to the point of like actually understanding what's possible with these things, because then your mind starts to like bring it all together and say, oh, like for our deal research process, we could use, Crew AI or some other, agentic system. It doesn't mean you have to build it and code it, but you need to understand what's possible. And so when I'm talking to businesses, I try to get like really down to like, what is the actual thing you need done in your business? And then let's figure out how AI fits into that. Because that's all that we've done internally is figured out, okay, can AI answer a customer service ticket? Absolutely, right? For us, one of the things we built that's really powerful is our onboarding process. We like build a knowledge base about the client's business and build up all the FAQs and like all these things that our team needs. That used to take probably 6 days, 5 to 6 days, 2 or 3 team members, probably all in, 40 hours total across them. Not a ridiculous amount of hours, but more than 1 hour, right? Now we have it literally down to about 90 minutes, and it's probably 3 times, 4 times better than the original one was. And because we've spent 10 years building up that onboarding process, so like we've always been very meticulous about it. But then we started layering AI onto part of it. And now we're at the point where a client basically does like a 10-minute call with our AI system. They don't even talk to a human anymore. They talk to the AI system that interviews them. And then out the back end of that, 90 minutes later, pops a super detailed knowledge base that my team then reviews and like kind of annotates additional stuff that's needed. So there still is a human review, but it's night and day different than what it used to be. The takeaway, I think, for the listener is the reason why we were able to build that is we spent 10 years understanding what's the best way to onboard a customer. So we know our process. But I spent 3 years going really deep into AI to really understand like what is possible. How does this stuff work? What does agentic mean? Like, is crew AI the right tool set to use? Like, I got lost too over the years, but it all started to come together eventually. And I went, oh, like we could just do this with our onboarding process. And now it's 90 minutes to get what used to take a week.
You're on a 200 plus person organization, and it's heavily built on human labor. And you're being so proactive in integrating AI that I thought it'd be important to have you on the show so that founders of startups and other companies could understand, you might not be an AI company, but how you can use AI to improve your efficiency and build better products faster, quicker, better. Can you give everyone a little bit of background on yourself and what you're doing at HelpFlow?
Yeah. So HelpFlow started as basically a customer service agency in 2014. So it's been a little over 10 years. And by CS agency, I essentially mean doing customer support for other e-commerce stores. So we have agents, we staff those agents, we train them, and they do customer service for our clients. And so started that in 2014, have always been really tech minded. I remember hacking together our initial technical systems and how do we learn the client's business and give the agent the right resources and all those things. So at our core, we're a people business, right? We do customer service, at least for the first era of the company. But we've always been technical. We've always been systems minded. A lot has happened in those 10 years, but now we're essentially at the point where we provide virtual assistants, so like human VAs for any business, for any role, not just customer service, not just e-com, but we layer AI onto like the entire thing. It's an AI empowered human virtual assistant. And we've been able to accomplish a ton with AI. So it's been super exciting the last couple of years, but that's the journey in a nutshell.
What's interesting about this, and what I think every founder needs to be thinking about, is we always look at growing headcount and growing the team to handle more capacity and hyperscaling. And that's what the venture world is all about. And, you have a 200 plus person team. So let's talk about how you think about building these systems. We talk about you having kind of a algorithmic mindset when it comes to building systems and operations. Is it like Frankensteining a bunch of Zapier integrations? Is it building custom code? How do you do it?
Yeah. So that whole concept of like algorithmic thinking, I've always considered myself like very systems minded is how I used to word it. And I wish I could remember who it was. I know we started the conversation on Twitter and then we moved it to a Zoom meeting, but I don't know who it was. If you're watching this, please let me know because I like to credit you. But this person said to me, he's like, Jon, you're an algorithmic thinker. Your mind like thinks in algorithms and process. And I was like, yeah, like that's a great way to say it. And so this whole systems focus or algorithmic thinking is essentially being able to see the pieces of a process, right? So like when something happens, like what are the steps that get it to that point? And even one of our other friends, Greg from Ticket Kick back in the day, I remember an email he sent me before one of our meetings. He said, Jon, you are like the most process minded like person when you prepare for a meeting. Like I got everything here. Like I don't have to prepare everything. I know how the meeting's going to go. And all of that is really important with AI because like AI can do anything, essentially. It can do a lot of stuff, maybe not anything, but it can do way more than most people are pushing it with. But you have to be very specific, right? And you could call that prompt engineering or like there's a ton of terminology for it, but basically like be clear on what you want done and give the context of what you want done. And so that whole algorithmic thinking mindset has caused me to really be able to communicate effectively to AI to get really good results back from AI. And because I'm like that, our team is also like that, right? Like for good or for worse, our team culture is kind of based on the founder at a certain point, right? I know it expands beyond that, but we're very systems minded, probably because I was very systems minded when we started the business. And so that's created an army of 200 people that know how to communicate to robots because we communicate robotically sometimes internally. And that's created a super exciting time with AI because I realized like when we communicate in that way, we're able to have it do really complex things for us. And so that's kind of like the line of thinking of how we've gotten to this point in terms of how I think about communicating with AI. In terms of the tools and like how we put it together, definitely started off Frankenstein for sure. That was probably like early 2023, somewhere around that time. And then, late 2023, I started to get clear on, the OpenAI suite of APIs and doing a little bit of development work myself. I started to understand like how to move data around between these systems. we're now at a point, if we fast forward, we're doing a lot of like agentic AI stuff. We're essentially like, we're able to build these teams of humans, almost is how I explain it to people. Basically, like through an API, we have a team of AIs that will go out and do stuff, research a topic, research a prospect, compile a report, spot like quality check it, do all this stuff. And it'll come back with the work done, right? And so from that perspective, we're essentially able to get a lot of leverage on ourselves as a team by essentially thinking of AI like a human, or thinking of AI like a team of humans, and kind of building the tools in that way. So that's kind of how we're thinking about that. Algorithmic mindset is part of it. And then also understanding like, what is AI in relation to your whole company and what your company does and how the team operates.
And see, what I think is important for a lot of founders to realize, the reality is you can build great businesses with very few people if you know how to leverage these tools and build out these tools effectively. And one of the biggest problems I run into is the amount of tinkering required, of just the constant tweaking and manipulating of the prompt or the data that you're inputting. How do you go about keeping track of all that tinkering?
Evals. Like evals are, if you build an AI, like what evals are, maybe you're into it, maybe you're not. But evals are so important. Evals are essentially quality control. Like, did the AI produce what you wanted, right? And doing that in an objective way to say, like, here's what I wanted, here's how I would measure what I want. And then you're essentially evaluating, like, did that happen? I think it was one of the YC guys, or at least it was on a podcast, but they basically said like the two ingredients of building with AI is essentially workflow and evals, right? So like workflow is like, what do you want done? What is the sequence of how it gets done, which is algorithmic thinking, right? So I've got a cooler name for it, I think. And then evals, like, did that happen? That's basically like what you need to build with AI. And you could say you need training data and you need all this other stuff, which I guess is technically true. It depends what you're building. But with workflow and evals, you can get to the point where it's producing what you want. And so the constant tinkering is just part of the process of building. But I think when you have proper eval set up for what are you trying to do and what is the measure of good, essentially, it enables you to have an endpoint for that tinkering. And so one of the things that we do is, and this is more so over early 2024, I probably started studying evals and like all that stuff works. Now we're at the point where for the things we're building, we have evals set up to say, okay, is this hitting the mark? And then once it gets to a certain point in terms of the eval, and we say, okay, that is done being built, and we will stop tinkering on it. We still revisit it. So like if we make big changes in our system, you got to run all the evals again. But once you measure it as like, this is what good is, it kind of frees you up to say, okay, I'm not going to tinker on that one anymore. Because I think this has always been true for software. Like you could always tinker further. That's always been true. But I think because AI is a little bit of a black box, it's not like if-then statements in code, the tinkering could go forever. Like you could just tinker forever.
And that's usually what I run into. And I guess I don't really call it evals, but that's what we do with our teams. So we build out our own algorithms and AI for Thunder in terms of the free tools that we provide, as well as a lot of the back-end tools that we use for our clients when it comes to what we call like a capital strategy assessment. You're still going to have a lot of human touch. The fact that 70% could be done within like an hour of what would typically take an investment bank like weeks, or like have some poor associate working 80 hours on a particular project and hating their life, and, to having a partner do the output in a few hours. And we're starting to see that across the startup landscape of companies being able to output more, faster, quicker, earlier. And the bar to get to the certain milestones that VCs want to see or potential acquirers want to see, you can do it with less and less people and less money, which I think is a fascinating scenario. And you look at the list of companies we put up, like Cursor's 100 million ARR in 21 months with 20 people. 100 million with just 20 people. Lovable, 0 to 10 million with 15 people. And then, what was the other one? Yeah, Magnificent, like 10 million in ARR with just 2 people. Like, it's just wild what companies are able to do these days. And so I'd be curious, when you look at, similar structured businesses, as you were kind of talking about your competition, like what opportunities come to mind? Do you see it as like, let's outcompete them, or let's see if we can go, buy them, or do we make them irrelevant?
It's so funny you bring that up. I'm literally looking at a deal right now for a VA business that I think we could replicate over tons of VA businesses. The main premise is basically what you said. We can be way more efficient and effective than other VA businesses, right? And I think that's because of how we think of the actual virtual assistant. The typical VA business, or really any business with employees, is you train those employees, they build up skill sets, and then they can do really good work, right? The thing that's unique with AI is you can separate that work, the value of the employee's work, you can separate it from tactical knowledge of how something should be done and doing it efficiently versus what should be done, the strategic decisions. So like tactical, get the stuff done, and then strategic, like what should be done, what should be the decision here, right? And what's happening now is the tactical what to do can be built into a process, which has always been true, but now you can have AI do that process. And so then it becomes, okay, like the key value of the employees is the strategic decisions, right? Also called reasoning, right? Now, as of last year, the reasoning models are starting to come out. So now the reasoning can be done too, not all of it, but some of it. And so when you think of the value of the employees, you can use AI to supercharge that. And I think that the VA business is a place where you could very quickly grow by going out and essentially acquiring businesses, rolling them up, and then running them in your way. We are, without going like super deep into it, I'd love to nerd out with you later on like business strategy stuff. I think we have two options. I think one is to go out and basically buy these companies, roll them into our model and do it better. The challenge with that is we would need to bring their VAs into our model, right? Which is not hard. Like we still have a process to do that, but that would be one challenge of that model. The other way is for us to figure out how we can do what we do with their VAs. So essentially do what we're doing, but do it in a software-driven way where we don't have to sell you a VA. We sell you the way to work with a VA with the tools using our software. And so I think we're considering both. Both might be a good option, but I think in every industry, I think you and I have probably had discussions like this. And again, going back to like that competitive mindset, for some reason, I'm just fascinated with the opportunity to like go into an unsexy business and just run circles around competitors. Like we used to talk about this with digital marketing, where it's like you go into an industry where like nobody knows how to do digital marketing and you're the best marketer. Like you could have some really good wins with that. I think AI creates a huge new opportunity across probably most industries to come in and say, if we are the best at integrating AI into a business to provide the value that the business provides, make it more valuable, like more valuable to their end customer, right? Because you're able to do it faster or better with AI and more efficiently. So the business value is up. I think there's going to be a ton of those opportunities over the next couple of years. And I think that's one path to capitalize on them, is to basically buy businesses and improve the value by doing that. Another one is to embrace the fact that I think their customers of every business, they're all going to start to be looking at like, how should we implement AI? So if a competitor of ours is not implementing AI effectively, we may be able to just sweep up their customers by having a better way to do things. And so it becomes a decision of like, do I buy that revenue or do I take that revenue? And the pros and cons to both, right? But I think there's opportunities across the board because of the disruption.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. I see a lot of companies in the, of millions of revenue, but, not venture or scale or anything like that, where, this type of process is so feasible of like, okay, do we implement AI to be faster, quicker, stronger, and then go do business development and try to steal business? Or do we go in and buy our competition knowing that we can perform at a better, gross margin or EBITDA margin than our counterparts? And I think that's going to be a major transformational shift over the next 10 years across all industries. And something that I think will be pretty powerful to witness as, say younger talent, comes to market and be like, why do you guys do it this way? Or what we're seeing with Doge, with Elon Musk and the US government, of like them having to take an elevator down a mine shaft or like file like retirement papers for US government employees. You're like, what is wrong with our world today? Like, how much opportunity gap is there to close by moving those level of inefficiencies? You're likely having trouble raising money or selling your company. Personally, I've had 4 exits and I've raised over $145 million. If you want a free coaching session with me, just like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below letting me know what you think of today's video for a chance to win a free coaching session with me. I'll select 3 winners every single month. You just have to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below for a chance to win. Now, onto the video.
I think AI took these inefficiencies. There's always inefficiencies in business, but it took these inefficiencies and like just blew them up very quickly. So like what's possible now in 2025, we're recording this in February, is vastly different than what was possible in like February of 2022, right? And that's only 3 years, right? That's not a long time in business, but it's like completely different what's possible. And you could argue that like February of 2024, 1 year, Like what's possible now is very different than what was possible then. I don't remember when GPT-01 came out, but like the concept of a reasoning model makes it so that the strategic decisions can be made by AI too. And a year from now, it's going to be as big of a leap, I think.
Like people make the comparison of like when computers, got mainstream, call it the 80s and 90s when computers started to be adopted and stuff like that. But like I think it's even more rapid adoption. Like that's almost probably 10x faster than computer adoption, just because one, everyone already has computers now, and two, everyone already has access to ChatGPT. There's like no barrier to entry to have access to this kind of stuff. It's really more of, do you have someone dedicated to this and focused on this now? Either the CEO who's focusing on it, or bringing in someone that's going to be dedicated on it, and what systems can be automated, whether it's hiring an agency or bringing in like a chief of AI. Well, I'm pretty sure we'll start to see that across a lot of the, Fortune 500s is the chief AI role, hiring like 25-year-olds and 30-year-olds.
I got something to add on that too. I've been doing a lot of reflection like at the end of the year last year. And I think what's unique about the journey that we went through, that I went through as the CEO of the company, is I realized like 5 years ago that like what we do is going to be completely replaced. And it's probably early, and I probably thought it was going to happen faster. But I kind of got to a point where I said, I think what we do today is going to be completely replaced by technology. And so that caused me to start to like look externally of like, by what technology and how does it work and how could we adopt it and all these things. So I got into the technology and into the disruption early on. And so I had time to really like understand it. And then I think what happened is there was a healthy mix of terror and opportunity. And it was this dance over probably like a 2-year period of just knowing like, holy shit, I got to figure this out. Otherwise, I'm going to be displaced. I felt fear of being made obsolete, essentially. And I'm way into tech and way into technology and very systems focused, right? And so it caused me to be able to dig into it and actually enjoy doing it and love doing it and be interested in it. And I think that with any tech change, it's important to actually be interested in it and enjoy the process. You could hire a chief of AI, yes, but I think also like every leader in every business has to understand at its core, like how does AI function so that they can identify opportunities of where it fits? Because that way you can go through that transformation effectively. Everybody will become obsolete because of AI if they don't embrace and use AI effectively. I don't know the timetable. It's faster for customer service than other industries. It's slower for certain industries, but everybody will become obsolete if they don't adapt to it, right? And so I think it's really important as founders and business leaders to like actually be interested in it and enjoy it, because it causes you to go into the rabbit hole and spend time, and eventually you start to see all the dots connect.
So, before we hopped on, you were kind of talking about this workflow that you were using in terms of creating internal tools and products. I'd be curious for you to kind of share some of your insights, like maybe a pet project of yours right now that you think is taking the latest and greatest AI and kind of sharing how you're thinking about it and what problem you're trying to solve.
I could go in a couple directions with this. I know we talked about like the coding one. We could go into a little bit of that, or just in general of like how we're taking our current process of like layering AI onto the team and like taking it to another level. I think for people that are running software businesses, I think it's critical to like go very deep into, AI assisted coding. One of the guys that I think is really pushing the envelope on this is, I think his last name is Wright, McKay Wright. We can link it up in the show notes. But these workflows you can build with like ChatGPT 01, Claude, Cursor, and like knowing how to work between those tools, and how do you give your entire code base to 01 since there's not, or 01 Pro since there's not the API, at least as of now. Like when you try to figure out a workflow for how all these things can help in your software development process, you can get a lot more done. And so I think for every software company, I think it's really important to make sure that your team is starting to use all that stuff. But even for non-software companies, which I would put us in that bucket, at least for now, I've spent a lot of time, specifically over the last like 18 months, learning how to code essentially, but like code in like this new world. So understanding like, front end, back end, frameworks, what's the pros and cons of different frameworks, to use the same framework between the front and back end, database stuff, users, payments, all these things. Like there's a lot of aspects of software development. And because I've gone deep into like how software development works and how do you architect a piece of software, we're starting to realize how we could take what we do and turn it into like a software product and do it fairly quickly using, AI coding and a solid team. And so I think the reason why I bring that up is I think it's important to start to understand how software is built using AI, because then it becomes way more feasible for you to integrate AI into your business, right? Integrating AI is not as straightforward as like just go out and buy, Salesforce is doing some cool AI stuff. Like maybe we should move to Salesforce, right? Or there's a bunch of help desks that are doing, some cool AI stuff for customer service. Maybe we should just integrate them, right? Like that might be step zero, but like the most effective step to take or the most important step to take is to understand what are they doing and how are they doing it so you can start to apply it yourself. And I think studying how software is built and studying how all this AI stuff works is the path to get there. I would wrap that up by, you got to watch for this blind spot, I think, which is really important. When you start to see AI tools out there, a lot of them are doing some powerful stuff, but a lot of them are just, 9 to 12 months ahead of maybe you or maybe their competitors. And so they come out with this product and say, look, like you can automate a customer service ticket. And they wrap it in a nice interface and, do all these things in marketing, but it's automating a customer service ticket. If you know nothing about AI, that's insane to see. It's magical. But if you understand even just a little bit about AI, you go, aren't they just passing the ticket up to OpenAI and then getting the response? Sort of. Like, what else are they doing? Like, once you understand a little more about AI, you can understand what these tools do. And then you can work with your team to build some of the same functionality in your system for like 8 to 10x cheaper than some of these companies are charging. So I think it's really important to not just adopt like AI tools, but again, to understand how they work so you can build some of that into your own functionality. Because otherwise you become somebody else's margin. Like you don't really get the margin benefits by adopting this stuff.
You don't get you're someone else's margin. I like that. That's a good quote.
It's the Jeff Bezos quote, right? Your margin is my opportunity.
Yeah, your margin is my opportunity, but you're someone else's margin, I think, is a different, more like...
So OpenAI wins the margin battle. Like they're going to eat all the labor of many industries. But in the interim, there's going to be a ton of companies that take the OpenAI margin and then mark it up, 6x or something, somewhere around that. And they'll have a good business model for 2 to 5 years, some number. I don't know how long.
2 to 5 years.
I don't know how long. It'll be a lot of margin and many companies will do very well. But there's a lot of companies out there that like the tech they're doing is not that complex if you're interested in learning it. But if you're not, like you just pay, that's still fine. It's still a good win.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like people still, for as long as our generation's around, and maybe even Gen Z still, like there will still be a desire for human engagement and human interaction and doing business with humans. But if you can make humans faster, stronger, better, it's like, all the cheesy Marvel movies and other movies out there, like the AI soldiers and stuff like that, or like the robotic soldiers and make them super enhanced. Like it's always like a common theme, but like at the end of the day, people would love to have that functionality, but still have the human oversight because, well, humans trust humans as well, for the most part. But I think this concept of you have a short window to capture a margin opportunity while things are still difficult, things are still hard to figure out. You can build the business that does it for people for a while, but at some point, as you're kind of saying like that, you might be able to just do it yourself. Like I see a lot of companies talking about ripping out legacy ERP systems and, legacy software as internal tools and just building exactly what they need, only for what they need, faster, cheap. Because like I was at Walmart and they spent billions on software, and then they spent billions on people replacing the billions in software that they were spending because they had it was just such a scale. It's like paying $10 per seat for 3 million people, gets a little pricey. And so they were like, well, we could build a team of 150 people and build that tool ourselves. Now it's like they build a team of 5 people. So it's going to be a very interesting future ahead. I was going to wrap up, but now I got to talk about Boardy. I don't know if you've come across Boardy.ai, but they blew up the scene with their AI for like networking kind of thing. And they used, supposedly Boardy raised the $8 million round that they recently closed. And I called it. I was just like, I got to give it a try. It's an Australian accent, which is brilliant. It's just like so hilarious. And it's got, it's a witty personality and all that kind of stuff. You're like, okay. And but I like what they did where it's like, this is AI. There's no faking you or fooling you. This is AI and this is your, kind of, it was my first experience having like what was considered to be a natural conversation with AI. Results, as far as the output of the recommended connections, I kept recommending people I specifically said I don't want to meet, but
workflow and evals.
They didn't run an eval, or maybe I was
they did. That's an example of like, it's a broad that's a very broad thing for them to try to do, is like make recommendations on your network, right? Like I know the data is there, but that's a fairly complex thing to do. And
But the
so
thing is, the data's not there. Like I do a lot of we have our own matching AI algorithms. Like we're having to fill the gaps with AI and make reasoning assumptions with O1 because there's just so few data points that are actually up to date and relevant and public on a lot of companies and firms and investors and stuff like that. And that's where it becomes really difficult. Because if you just go to someone's LinkedIn, it's like it says they're an investor in like 20 companies on their profile, and then the fifth one, it's the actual real job they have at the firm. And like for an AI to skim all that data on LinkedIn and have the contextual awareness of like what's actually right, I've seen it miss a lot. And I'm sure they'll get better and better at it over time. But right now, it totally misses the mark on accuracy. I think we're at like 70 or 80%, and that's after a couple of months of tinkering in terms of kind of filling the gap on investor related data.
yeah.
So
I think that's a symptom of like, I think of this as an interface and an infrastructure problem, like, or interface and architecture, really. Like when I say the data is there, like it's not there in one place. And that's an architecture problem of like, where do you get that data? And so I think that's one thing that needs to be solved in the coming years, is like, where is all the data and how do you make that all available to AI? And then the interface part is like, how do you communicate with AI? When it's not sure, does it go up to you and then go back to AI, or does it just escalate to you and say, this one's not good? Like this didn't pass, right? And so I think like it's a whole different way of like building software, but I'm starting to see companies start to kind of think like that. And that's how we're thinking, is when you think of AI like a human and you treat it as such and you work with it back and forth, it becomes much clearer on how it would be built. Doesn't mean it's easy to build it, but it becomes much clearer on how it would be done. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about that human component.
how I always treat it is like I treat it like an intern. Like I talk to it as if it's an intern, and then I expect like an associate level response. So it's like to where I grade and judge it against an associate level response. Definitely don't want, like, it was intern output, last year. Now it's like it's getting closer to what I would consider like a B level associate. B level meaning like you have A players, then you have like your B players and your C players. It's usually the output's usually between a C player and a B player. But if someone's slightly more experienced than who I'm having to explain it to, which is like how I typically will engage with AI, on a regular basis. That's always what I tell people as far as my metaphor when they don't know what to do. Like some people just don't have the right mindset when it comes into managing. They don't see it as managing a person, or they just do magic, make it happen.
Yeah. I think the way I think of that part is like, in prompting, you should think of it as a human and make sure it's like crystal clear what you want done, but also repeat like a lot. Like repeat very awkwardly. Like if you were talking to a human and you said, I want you to do this because of this, blah, blah, blah. And like, here's what I want it to be. And it's really important that it's like, you basically are making crystal clear. Like there's no room for confusion of what you're asking it to do. That's the first piece. And that's very awkward for people, I think, to do. The second part is give it all the context. So like give it a lot of context. And then at the bottom, if you're just doing it in a ChatGPT prompt, repeat again what you want done. So it's crystal clear. That's super helpful. And then the other part is after you do all that, at the end, if you say, before you get started or before you provide this, like feel free to ask some questions if you need some clarifying, if you need some answers clarified, right? Again, very similar to a human. You wouldn't just send them off and not let them ask questions. When you do that, I think the results end up being a lot stronger, but it's definitely a constant game of tinkering to see like what's the right way to do it.
Well, all I can say is it's worth the tinkering. For people that don't know you, Jon, and they want to learn more, what's the best way for people to learn more about you?
Yeah, I think helpflow.com is probably best. You can learn more about our approach and what we're doing. We're doing some cool stuff with virtual assistants. And then the main thing I would do, whether you're interested in working with a VA or not, if you go to the site, you'll see a call to action where you can literally like talk to the AI on the phone and just experience it. One of the big things that we do with VAs is we make it so you don't have to like over explain everything to your VA and like type out all these, emails or SOPs. You basically just talk to an AI on the phone and it will interview you about the work you want done or the process. And then it creates all the SOPs for the VA. But you can literally do that on the site and just talk to the AI and like really experience it. And that tends to like kind of open people's minds quite a bit to like what it's like to actually work with AI. And so I think that would probably be the best bet. Just go to helpflow.com, check out kind of our approach of what we're doing, and then talk to the AI so you can really see how it works.
Jon, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate your insights and just catching up and having a fun AI chat. So we'll get this episode out and share with our audience ASAP.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate it, man. And for everyone listening, I hope it's been helpful.
Thank you for watching today's episode. As a reminder, I'm your host, Jason Kirby. I have built and sold multiple companies with over 135 million in transactions as either a founder, operator, investor across multiple industries. I'm currently the managing director and founder of Thunder.vc, where we help companies and founders at all stages navigate what capital to raise and who to raise it from, and help improve companies' odds of raising capital. If you need help, reach out to us at help.thunder.vc. If you like today's show, please share with your friends, give us a like or a comment down below. And as a reminder, this show is published weekly. And to get notified of new episodes and our newsletter, be sure to go to our website at join.thunder.vc. And if you sign up today, I'll send you a few freebies on how to negotiate a term sheet, how to get a free list of relevant VCs, and much more. That's it. No more shameless plugs. Thank you, and see you next week.